Imagine stepping back, way back, 34,000 years, a time when, survival was everything. You'd think our ancestors were laser focused on just food, shelter, staying alive.
Right, the basics.
But what if I told you they were up to something else? Something, well, totally unexpected. Something that unlocks this vibrant, really complex secret about how they thought, what they could do. They weren't just surviving. It looks like they were starting to master color.
And not just any color. We're talking blue, which is notoriously difficult to make even much later in history. We're doing a deep dive today into a discovery from the Caucasus region, and it's a real game changer. It completely reshapes how we see early Homo sapiens, their intelligence, their relationship with, well, the world around them. It all comes down to this one blue compound found on a pretty simple stone tool. It gives us a whole new angle on ancient ingenuity.
So our mission today is to unpack this. How did these people, tens of thousands of years ago, figure out how to create blue? Was it dye? Was it maybe medicine? We want to explore what this find tells us about their daily lives, their hidden knowledge, and why scientists are saying this really shakes up our understanding of the Upper Paleolithic.
It really does.
And this is all based on some fascinating research, right? Including work published in PLOS 1, really laying out the details on identifying this compound indigotin on old grinding tools.
Exactly. Meticulous work. It forces us to rethink what was possible way back then.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Where are we? You need to transport yourself to Dzudzuana Cave. It's nestled up in the foothills of the Caucasus Mountains in modern-day Georgia.
And that area has been a hotspot for archaeology for a long time. Lots of important finds come from there.
Definitely, and the time period.
We're talking the Upper Paleolithic, so roughly 34,000 years ago. It's deep time. And the artifacts themselves, well, they're pretty unassuming at first glance. Just simple stone pebbles. River stones, basically. Not even shaped into formal tools, just, smooth pebbles. They were found back in the 2000s during excavations by a big international team. Their careful work is why we even have this story to tell.
Right, and these pebbles, they weren't obviously special at first, were they? People weren't looking for ancient dye factories.
Not at all. The initial research was more focused on basic useware. Were they grinding something, maybe soft plants? Or ochre. Nobody was expecting this flash of ancient blue.
So that makes the discovery even more, well, amazing. The blue revelation. What happened?
Well, during really close microscopic analysis, and this is painstaking work, the team just unexpectedly spotted these blue residues. Some looked fibrous, even.
Wow.
And critically, they were concentrated in the worn areas of the pebbles. That was the first big clue that this wasn't just random.
Okay, so what was this blue stuff? What's the molecule?
They managed to identify it precisely. It's indigotin, which, as you said, most people know as indigo.
Indigo, like blue jeans, but ancient.
Sort of, but the source and process are key here. See, indigotin isn't just sitting there blue inside the plant. It has to be made. It forms through a chemical reaction.
Okay, intriguing. What plant?
The source was identified as Isatis tinctoria L. We usually call it woad.
Woad? I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a biennial plant in the cabbage family, actually, and it's native right there in the Caucasus.
So hold on. They weren't just finding blue pigment. They were performing chemistry 34,000 years ago.
That's the incredible part. They were actively creating the blue.
How does that work? How do you get blue from, well, a green leaf?
It's pretty clever chemistry, really. Inside the woad leaves, in little compartments, there are precursor chemicals, glycosides. When you break down the leaf cells, like by crushing or pounding them, maybe with these pebbles, you release those precursors.
Okay.
Then atmospheric oxygen reacts with them, and that reaction forms the blue indigotin. It's a transformation.
So they had to know to crush the leaves and expose them to air. That's sophisticated.
It implies a real understanding of the process. And, this is the first time indigotin has ever been found on artifacts this old. It pushes back the timeline for this kind of complex plant processing by, well, tens of thousands of years.
That's just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But, okay, the big question in archaeology, always, contamination. How do we know this isn't, some microscopic fiber from someone's blue shirt decades ago in the lab, or even a stray bit from the excavation?
Absolutely crucial question. And the researchers knew this would be the major hurdle. They used a really rigorous, multi-pronged approach to tackle it head-on.
Like archaeological detective work.
Exactly. Forensic archaeology, almost. One clever thing they did was use detailed molding techniques. They made casts of the pebble surfaces to lift off micro-residues. And they specifically focused on what they called second molds, which pull residues from deeper within the pores and cracks. stuff less likely to be recent contamination.
Ah, getting into the nooks and crannies where ancient stuff might be trapped.
Precisely.
Right.
And they even confirmed the stones could trap things like this. Using super high-tech imaging, synchrotron micro-CT, they showed the pebbles were porous,
Okay.
meaning they have tiny internal cavities, perfect for trapping and preserving microscopic bits of organic material for millennia. The stone itself acted like a tiny time capsule.
Wow, okay. The stone protected the evidence. So they've got these tiny, deeply embedded samples. How did they confirm chemically it was indigotin?
They used state-of-the-art methods, microspectroscopy, specifically Raman and FTIR spectroscopy.
Right, those are non-destructive ways to ID chemicals.
Exactly, non-invasive. They basically shine light on the sample and analyze how it scatters or absorbs that light. It gives you a unique chemical fingerprint. And these methods confirm the presence of the indigotin chromophore. That's the specific part of the molecule that actually absorbs light to make it look blue right there in the archaeological samples.
A chemical ID card. Got it. But they didn't stop there, did they? Didn't they try to replicate the process?
Yes, and that was key for validation. They did replicative experiments. They took modern pebbles, similar types to the ancient ones, and pounded fresh woad leaves with them.
Ah, making their own modern comparison samples.
Right. This created a reference library. They could see what the wear patterns look like on the stones, what the pounded plant fibers look like under the microscope. It allowed for a direct scientific comparison between the ancient finds and the first known samples.
Smart. Did they find specific microscopic clues in the fibers themselves?
They did. They identified these unique kind of horn-shaped structures called trichomes. They're basically plant hairs on the fibers from the archaeological residues, and specific types of damage to the fibers too. Crucially, these matched Isatis tinctoria perfectly and helped distinguish it from other potential indigo sources. It nailed down the specific plant.
Okay, really building the case. But back to that contamination issue, the blue jeans problem. How did they definitively rule that out?
This was maybe the most critical part. They were exhaustive. They tested control samples from everything imaginable, dust from the paper bags the artifacts were stored in, sediment from the cave floor around where the pebbles were found, and yes, crucially, modern blue cotton fibers from denim and other modern dyed materials.
What was the smoking gun proving it was ancient woad?
The key was finding specific plant polymers in the archaeological blue residues, things like pectin and lignin.
Yay.
Well, those are components of plant cell walls. You simply do not find pectin and lignin in cotton fibers, modern or otherwise. Cotton is almost pure cellulose.
Ah, so the chemical signature was fundamentally different from modern blue textiles.
Totally different. Plus, they identified specific structural forms of the cellulose itself in the ancient fibers, known as cellulose polymorphs, that were characteristic of Isatis and distinct from cotton. Taken together, the location in worn areas, the deep embedding, the specific plant hairs, the plant-only polymers like pectin, the unique cellulose structure it built an ironclad case. This blue was ancient woad processed on these pebbles, no doubt.
Wow. Okay, the science sounds incredibly solid. So we know how they found it. We know it's ancient indigotin from woad. But the big question remains, why? Why go to all this trouble 34,000 years ago? The researchers don't claim to know for sure, do they?
No, they're careful about that. The exact purpose is still open to interpretation. But two main ideas, two hypotheses, emerged strongly from the research. Dyeing or medicine, or maybe, a bit of both.
Okay, let's talk dyeing first. A splash of blue. My first thought is cave art, but you almost never see blue in Paleolithic cave paintings, right?
That's right. Blue is pretty rare in nature, and mineral blues, the kind you might use for paint, are almost unheard of in Paleolithic sites. Unlike, say, red and yellow ochre or black charcoal, which are everywhere.
So if it was a dye, it wasn't likely for painting rocks. What else?
It suggests something more. Maybe aesthetic, symbolic. Perhaps coloring softer materials, animal skins, maybe early textiles if they had them, even decorating their own bodies.
That implies a whole level of complex thought, social meaning.
Exactly. Think about the effort involved. This wasn't easy to make. Having access to blue, this rare, vibrant color, could have signified status or group identity or had some spiritual meaning. It points towards complex, symbolic behavior.
And this would rewrite the history books on dyeing, wouldn't it? When did we previously think plant dyeing started?
Way later. The earliest confirmed plant dye before this was probably red, from madder root, Rubia tinctoria, and that dates to the Upper Paleolithic, maybe 13,500 years ago.
So less than half as old as this blue discovery.
Right. We find woad seeds in Neolithic sites around 5,000 years ago, but zero evidence it was actually used as a dye until the Iron Age. This Dzudzuana find potentially pushes back sophisticated plant-based dyeing by, well, 20,000 years or more. It's massive.
Okay, that's one strong possibility. What about the other idea? Ancient medicine.
This is also really compelling. Woad, Isatis tinctoria, is actually well known for its medicinal properties. It's been used in traditional medicine for centuries, even into recent times.
What kind of properties?
The precursor molecules and the indigotin itself have demonstrated effects. Things like being antiseptic, killing germs preservative, maybe even insect repellent, protective qualities. Plus, the roots and leaves have other compounds like alkaloids and flavonoids that are bioactive.
Makes intuitive sense that people so reliant on nature would know which plants could help them, right? We even see animals self-medicating.
Absolutely. And we do have other growing evidence for Paleolithic medicine, like traces of medicinal plants found in Neanderthal dental calculus tartar on their teeth dating back almost 50,000 years.
Wow.
So the idea isn't out of left field, but what this discovery highlights is the sophistication required. Knowing which plant to use, how to process it to unlock its properties, especially since some plants can be poisonous if prepared incorrectly or used in the wrong dose.
Yeah, that takes real ecological knowledge, passed down presumably, not just trial and error.
It's just a deep, ingrained understanding of the plant world, far beyond just what's edible. Careful observation, experimentation, and sharing that knowledge.
So whether it was dye or medicine or both, this discovery really paints a much richer picture of Paleolithic life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Beyond just chipping flint and hunting mammoths.
Definitely. It speaks to what archaeologists sometimes call the missing majority.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the archaeological record is heavily biased towards things that preserve well-stone tools, bones, sometimes hearths, organic materials, especially plants, wood, fibers. They usually rot away. They're the vast majority of what people use day to day, but they're missing from the record.
So we get a skewed view, focused only on what lasts.
Exactly. This discovery is like finding a tiny preserved piece of that missing majority. It gives us a glimpse into the complex ways people were using plants, ways that are usually invisible to us. It's like finding, I don't know, one brightly colored thread from a huge vanished tapestry we thought was just gray.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It forces us to see plants not just as food, but as, well, resources for complex technologies and maybe even cultural expression.
Precisely. It underlines that plants were central to complex operations way beyond basic subsistence. It shows a level of technological skill and, frankly, cultural sophistication in the Upper Paleolithic that we're only just starting to fully appreciate. It drives home the idea that these Homo sapiens, 34,000 years ago, were, as the researchers put it, fully aware of the power of plants. They weren't just passively using nature, they were actively manipulating it, unlocking its chemical secrets for specific purposes.
And it wasn't even requiring super complex, specialized tools, right? Just simple river pebbles.
That's another key insight. These mundane, unmodified pebbles weren't just for bashing nuts or grinding ochre. They were versatile tools, capable of being used for these quite delicate and complex operations, like abstracting specific chemical compounds from leaves.
It makes you look at every simple artifact differently, doesn't it? Wondering what hidden stories it might hold.
It really does. We need to keep an open mind about the capabilities hidden in seemingly simple objects.
So let's recap. We've journeyed back 34,000 years to Dzudzuana Cave. We've seen how our ancestors there weren't just surviving, they were meticulously processing woad leaves, Isatis tinctoria, using simple stone tools. They were unlocking chemistry to create a vibrant blue compound, indigotin. And whether they were using it as perhaps the world's earliest sophisticated dye, suggesting complex symbolic lives, or as a potent medicine drawing on deep botanical knowledge.
Or maybe both.
Or maybe both. Either way, it reveals this whole new dimension of human ingenuity, their connection to and understanding of the natural world so long ago.
It's a fantastic discovery. And, finding this evidence literally hidden in the microscopic cracks of an ancient stone, it reminds you that the biggest stories of our deep past aren't always shouted from cave walls. Sometimes they're whispered. It really challenges us, I think, to look closer, to question our assumptions about what Paleolithic life was like, to keep appreciating just how rich and complex their world might have been.
And it leaves you wondering, what else is out there?
Exactly. What other complex knowledge, maybe about other plants used for things besides food, what other sophisticated behaviors are still waiting to be found, locked away in these subtle traces our ancestors left behind? It just makes you marvel, really.